Welcome back to Between Bells. A new podcast is taking investigative journalism to a whole new level. Waiting for Impact is a classic Where Are They Now story that looks into what happens to the careers of the 90s R&B group Sudden Impact. The boy band disappeared just as soon as they hit the scene in 1991. The 10-episode limited series is hosted by MTV VJ of the 90s and early 2000s, Dave Holmes. Let's take a listen.
They point at the camera. They point at you. Like, are you ready for Sudden Impact? I couldn't wait to see what Sudden Impact was going to do next. What they did next was disappear.
Sounds so good. Okay, now joining us now is Dave
Thanks.
Holmes, TV personality and host of Waiting for Impact. Welcome. Now, not a lot of
Thank
people
you.
have heard of the group Sudden Impact, but how did you find out about them?
Well, I mean, I remember watching that video in 1991 from Motown Philly over and over and over because it got played nonstop. And you get that moment of Sudden Impact. And to me, it felt like a teaser trailer, like you're at a movie theater and, you see a 3-second teaser for a big movie with all your favorite big stars. And then the movie never comes out. So you're left like thinking, what happened? And it just was always in the back of my mind. And it was one of those stories that I wanted to explore. And, the world of the podcast gave me that opportunity.
Okay,
You described it as a where are they now? It's kind of more where were they then? Because we never really saw anything. And I always suspected something interesting had happened, and I was right.
Okay, I'm too excited about this. So speaking of podcasting, now, what inspired you to kind of go on that route? What about podcasting for this story seems so interesting for you?
Well, it's, you can kind of take it wherever you want, which is really exciting. You can make as many episodes as it'll bear. You can make them as long as you want. You can kind of take your time with the format. It was kind of just the right medium for a story like this. I'm an editor for Esquire as well. It was a little bit too long for a magazine piece. I don't know that there was enough. I didn't know whether there was enough story there for a book. There probably is. But a 10-episode podcast was kind of just right.
And you know what? Everyone is so obsessed with the 90s right now. Why do you think that's the case? And you know what? If this was out today, I guess if they disappeared today, how do you think social media would be following it?
Well, that's the thing. This whole thing happened 5 minutes before the internet. So Sudden Impact came and went and didn't leave a trace. Now you leave, a trail of digital breadcrumbs, So if after your career is over, if you have a moment, there's still something left behind for people to look at years later. You can still interact with your fans for as long as you want to. Back then, there was really nothing. There was no whatever magazine or newspaper articles were written about them in 1991 were on paper that is now, in some archive somewhere, if it exists at all. I think people are sort of eager for that time in the 90s before the internet kind of broke us, and it broke us up into a million little kind of micro markets, and it pulverized our attention span. And, it really changed our culture. But 1991 was a time when, big was big. Boys to Men were huge. They broke their own record for longest running #1 single 3 times in a row. They were like, multi-platinum massive in a way that very few people are anymore.
That is so true. And to get to, I guess, the point of why they disappeared throughout your investigation, you're talking to comedians, actors, major people in the entertainment world. Was there anything that really shocked you about this disappearance?
Well, I mean, the thing is, we only saw what we saw. We saw that 3 seconds in that video. And it was, it was tempting to think that that's all they ever did and that they, their career ended immediately afterwards, but it didn't. They went on for years and years and, barked up a forest full of wrong trees. They were just, success in entertainment boils down many times to just being in the right place at the right time. And they were at the wrong place at the wrong time a lot of times. And that is an experience that's really universal. Everyone I know, even the most successful of my friends or the people that we went after for interviews, everybody has a project that they were so excited about, that they were sure was going to happen, that didn't, for whatever reason. Everybody's been ghosted by an executive who was really excited about a project that they were pitching. It's all, we've all had that experience. We're all kind of sudden impact to somebody's Boys to Men. Everybody's a little bit less successful than somebody, except for for the most successful person in the world. But even that person probably feels like a loser for some other reason. And, everybody has had this sudden impact moment. It's universal.
That's so true. And one last question, which we're kind of touching on right now.
Yeah.
What do you hope that listeners take away from this podcast?
The thing that kept me inspired and engaged through the whole thing was that it's a story about boldness, about audacity. These guys got their moment through bold action that I don't want to spoil, but that is unbelievable. They got that moment in that video because Michael Bivins of Belle Biv DeVoe was bold enough to be like, they're going to be huge, and he just put them in. Everyone I talked to has success that can be traced back to a moment of bold action, and that's the same for me as well. And kind of researching this story and other people's stories reminded me to be bold. There's some good life lessons in here, if you can believe it.
I really like that. Be bold. Well, thank you, Dave Holmes, TV personality and host of the podcast Waiting for Impact. You can take a listen to episodes right now on Apple Podcasts or Amazon Music.